joining us now. Hey, Laura, how are you?
Hi, good. Good morning, John. How are you?
Okay, I'm predicting an upset in this district. I think you've got the momentum. You've knocked personally on over 5,000 doors. Let's start with that. When you go into people's living rooms now, you're about 2 weeks out this weekend. I know you door knock every weekend. What are people saying to you in their homes?
Well, I keep hearing the same thing, three things over and over again. They talk about jobs and education and transportation. They want to make sure that they have good-paying jobs, that they have a way to get there and to get home to their families each day, and that they have the skills and the training available for them to fill those jobs.
So tell me how you've done here financially. I know you're taking on a pretty well-funded incumbent in Mason. The Democrats desperately want to hold that seat. How has your fundraising been, and are you able to compete financially in the final weeks?
Absolutely. We're doing very well for someone who's never run for office. I raised on my own from people within my district well over $100,000. And the caucus has come in with some support here, and they're going to be by my side through the rest of this campaign. They want to see me pick up this seat. They know it can be done, and I'm going to work hard these last 2 weeks to make sure we bring it home.
So we understand that a mailer from the Monty Mason reelect Mason for House of Delegates campaign went out and hit the mailboxes Friday and Saturday, and they put me in their mailer. So it's always good, it's always good to get my own publicity out there. But you wanted to set the record straight. Can you share with our audience what that mailer was and give us an opportunity to respond to it?
Sure. Well, basically, the mailer said that I am not standing up for Virginia's women, and that when questioned about the transvaginal ultrasound bill, did I support it? And they said that I went silent. And if you remember that interview that you conducted it was the morning I announced that I was running for office in February, my response was there are three really important things that our voters want to hear about. They want to know what I can do for jobs and education and transportation. And I've stuck to that message because that is what I'm hearing as I've knocked the 5,000 doors. That particular bill I would not have supported. I think that we need to make sure that any piece of legislation we put in is there for protection and not for control. And that decision was already made 4 years ago. It's not relevant to my campaign today, and I'm going to focus on the things that the people in our district care about, and that's jobs and education and transportation.
Okay, so Laura, let's be clear and let's be precise. I went back after you called me on Friday, and I went back and listened to that interview, and I didn't get or have the impression that you were supportive of that legislation. You simply said you really wanted to focus on what you just said, jobs, transportation, and education. So I didn't take that as that you were in favor of it. If I did, I would have pressed you on it, and I did not. I just went on to something else. So I took it basically as you were not interested in that kind of stuff. So it seems like the mailer twisted that, right?
Well, sure. All of his mail and his criticisms have been lies and distortions. And I know that he's doing that because he's trying to cover up the fact that he has passed no legislation and he has been the most ineffective delegate, and that our district needs and deserves a new representative, and he cannot do the job that needs to be done to represent our district. And so he's going to continue down this path of telling lies and distortions, and I'm going to continue down the path of letting voters know that I will be the most effective, that I'm going to focus on the things that they care about, like jobs and education and transportation. And when I get to Richmond, I'm going to represent them with honesty and integrity and transparency and work my hardest for them.
Well, look, I think Monty has also represented his district with honesty and integrity. So, I mean, I'm not sure there's that big of a differential there. Let's get to transportation. One of the annoying things about many people on the peninsula, Lara, is that at the end of the day, regardless of what happens, we can't fix any roads. We had the 460 debacle, millions of dollars spent, a shovel never put in the ground. You go down a little bit further on the south side, you've got the disaster with the tolling companies and that fiasco. And so a lot of people now not particularly trusting that anybody is ever going to get in there and fix any of these roads. How is Lara Overy, as a freshman House of Delegates member, going to be different in actually getting roads expanded on the peninsula?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think it comes back to who can be more effective. I will join the party in leadership, and I have not burned any bridges. That I've built relationships with the party in leadership so that when I get to Richmond, I can hit the ground running and make sure that I can be effective at advocating for the resources that we need for the peninsula. And it will be a priority to see that we get 64 expanded all the way to Richmond, and I will fight hard to make sure that those dollars are allocated to fix that problem here on the peninsula.
Would that be your number one transportation priority?
That probably would, yes.
Now, for many people, anybody that takes that route, when it expands, when the lanes go back from whatever it is, 5 back down to 2 before you get to Williamsburg, Lara, that bottlenecks everybody. How realistic is it that you're going to affect change there, and we're actually going to see these lanes expanded before all of us are dead?
Well, transportation is going to continue to be a problem because we have more and more cars on the roads each day, and I think that we have to do the best job that we can do to address the transportation challenges and come up with common sense solutions that we can pay for. And there are, the HRTPO is in place to help prioritize and allocate those resources, and I know that our district is not currently represented on that board, and we need to make sure that we have someone who's advocating for funding with that organization.
So, look, Monty says that he's for transportation funding, and he says that he's going to fight for the dollars. What's the difference between Lara Overy fighting for the dollars, Monty Mason fighting for the dollars? How's it different?
Well, it's different because he's proven that he's not been able to work across the aisle and work with leadership to pass any legislation. How is he going to be more effective at getting any dollars allocated for our region? It's about effective leadership, and the district deserves an effective leader, and I have already built relationships with leadership. They are calling me and encouraging me, and they're excited about working with me, and I know that I'm going to be able to hit the ground and get things done. I'm a connector. I'm someone who goes into a challenge and finds the right people to connect with, to come up with new ideas and solutions and to fix those problems. It's what I've done my whole life, professionally and personally, and I know that I'm going to put the same energy and drive into this position when I'm elected.
Let's go to the guns. The Democrats, oddly enough, I find this fascinating, try to take the Senate. Their overall strategy, including Masons, I believe, is to close on restricting firearms, additional legislation that would make it tougher to get firearms in certain situations. In fact, Terry McAuliffe issuing a number of executive orders last week. How do you stand on McAuliffe's executive orders, and why?
Well, I think that McAuliffe is taking the Democrat playbook, particularly Obama's playbook, and knowing that he can't pass legislation by working with leadership, he's just going to do what it is that he wants to do. We need to protect our Constitution, we need to protect our laws, and we need to make sure that we follow the process and the procedure to change our laws. And so, you asked specifically about guns. I support and will uphold our Second Amendment rights, and I will view any legislation that comes to me with a common sense approach and understand what the impact is on both sides before making a decision on whether or not I'll support it. So I look forward to talking about this issue and many other issues with that hat on of common sense approach and how it helps or hurts Virginians.
I just think it's interesting that with so much at stake in the state Senate, that the Democrats decided, basically, I guess this is just my opinion, but it looks like they're politically closing on finding ways to further restrict the purchase of handguns, if you will, or guns in general. That's not proven to be a winning strategy anywhere ever. So it's just interesting to me, especially in Virginia, but that's their strategy. I guess we'll see how it plays out. Final thing, I've got a couple more minutes, Laura. One of the big issues that you're going to have to deal with is the fact that hospitals in non-congested areas, not in Northern Virginia and not in Hampton Roads, losing money. A lot of services are being dwindled. We understand that you're in opposition to Medicaid expansion. Is there an alternative that you might consider?
Well, I don't support the Medicaid expansion because we very fortunately have a balanced budget requirement in the state of Virginia. And expanding Medicaid, we have not figured out a way that we're going to pay for it. And yes, we might have a couple of years of support through the federal government, but we know that the federal government pulls back their funding all the time for programs that they mandate to Virginia. And so we've got to be sure that if we expand something, if we offer a new program, a new service, a new entitlement, that we have a way of paying for it. And we have not been shown that we will be able to pay for it. I think it's important to lift up and provide resources and encourage public-private partnerships of nonprofits that provide medical services. My mom is a volunteer nurse at the Lackey Free Clinic, and my husband and I both support that organization. I was very disheartened to find that 2 years in a row, my opponent put in legislation to take away the tax benefit of those who contributed to organizations like the Lackey Clinic and the Achievable Dream and other very important neighborhood assistance programs. And that's a prime example of someone who's out of touch with the nonprofits in our community. If that legislation had been successful, then these organizations would have had to work twice as hard for the same dollar. And we shouldn't be putting additional burden on the backs of those that are trying to serve the most needy in our communities.
Okay, that's going to be the final word from Lara Overy, candidate, 93rd House of Delegates, Republican. That's Williamsburg, part of James City County, York County, and Newport News. Hey, Laura, if people want more info on the positions in your campaign, where do they go?
I'm at www.lara, spelled Lara, the number 4, va.com.